Good day, folks, and welcome back to our 5-part video series on raised bed vegetable gardening and greenhouse gardening. If you are a loyal and returning subscriber to our channel, welcome back. If you are new, thank you so very much for subscribing to our YouTube channel. So let's get started with part 3, greenhouse construction. And what you are looking at, folks, is our greenhouse, made from reclaimed lumber and locally milled lumber. We also repurposed an old aluminum door, and we covered the greenhouse in 6mm plastic by Weatherall. It was recommended as Amazon's choice for greenhouses. Come along with us now, and you will get to see James, Katie, and you will, of course, get to see what Faith, Logan, and Ethan were up to with me last spring. This is part 3, our greenhouse story, and we will ask that you like our videos, ladies and gentlemen, that you take a few seconds to hit the notification bell, and if you haven't done so, to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our greenhouse construction and our greenhouse story starts here, with the use of an old axe and the marking out of a grid on the ground. The grid is rectangular in shape and measures 20 feet by 12 feet. Next, with the use of a tiller, the old sod or turf was removed inside this grid. With the ground tilled up and the soil loosened, it was time to begin the greenhouse foundation. And for the greenhouse foundation, we repurposed and reclaimed some old 4x4 posts. The soil was removed from where the greenhouse was going to go, and the old reclaimed 4x4 posts were arranged in the shape of a rectangle that measures 12 feet by 8 feet. It was leveled up in the corners and in the middle using some flat rocks, and it was screwed together with some 3.5-inch screws. With the foundation squared up and leveled up, it was time to go to a local mill and get some 2x3 and 1x5 locally milled lumber. Lumber to be used in the construction of the greenhouse walls and roof. The greenhouse wall construction process started in my driveway, with me using my measuring tape to take necessary measurements to ensure that the walls were 12 feet long and 8 feet long, and continued with the sawing and the correct placement of the wall shoes and the wall plates. And because the walls were also going to be 8 feet high, all the studs were cut to 93 inches. Next, the wall shoes and the wall plates were laid next to each other, and 16-inch centers were marked as locations for the correct placement of the wall studs. What you are seeing here is one of the 12-foot walls. And folks, all 4 walls were constructed using the locally milled 2x3 lumber and kept together using 3.5-inch Robinson bit screws. And with the 4 walls constructed, it was time to put them in place. We started with the end wall, followed by the back wall, the other end wall, and the front wall. And all 4 walls were leveled up and attached to the foundation with more 3.5-inch screws. Temporary stays or support boards were also used for the leveling, and removed later in the construction process. After an inspection and approval from our grandson James, it was time to attach some 1x5 wall boards. And we attached these 1x5 wall boards completely around the greenhouse to a height of 30 inches. And this too was inspected and approved by our grandson James. The next step in our greenhouse construction process was the making of the truss for the roof of the greenhouse. And this began with me constructing a truss mold. And this I was able to do using more of the 2x3 milled lumber and my measuring tape and steel square and the pavement in my driveway as a flat base. The material for each truss was placed inside the mold and measurements were taken. It was then cut to fit for each truss. Even the triangular pieces that were cut off on each end of the material was used. There was nothing wasted, ladies and gentlemen. And with the first truss partially completed and removed from the mold, it was easy to construct the remaining 12 truss, for a total of 13 roof truss needed for the construction of our garden greenhouse. And here in this clip, ladies and gentlemen, you can see that little scrappy ends of plywood are being used as gusset plates and attached to each truss. With the roof truss all finished, they are now ready for the final step, staining. And here's James again, pretty excited to be helping with this process. And with help from our son Devon, we began the process of staining all 13 roof truss, including the 2 end truss, which were constructed a little differently. And again, with help from our son Devon, it was time to place the roof truss on top of the wall plates. And the roof truss were attached along the wall plates at 16-inch centers and directly above each stud. A necessary process that will add support and strength to the greenhouse. The next step was to add spacers or blocks between each roof truss on both sides. And these blocks or spacers were also added between each of the wall studs. Openings were made in each wall for 2-foot square windows, and everything was stained. And then we began the process of attaching some old vinyl siding to the sides around the greenhouse. The siding and various pieces of trim were cut to length using my grinder and attached with 2-inch siding nails. The siding and trim was attached on top of the 1x5 lumber and went completely around the outside of the greenhouse. It also went completely around on the inside of the greenhouse as well. Our next job was to construct raised vegetable beds completely around the perimeter of the inside of the greenhouse. And for this, we used more of the 2x3 and 1x5 locally milled lumber. The framing or edging around our raised vegetable bed inside our greenhouse came from old reclaimed decking boards we acquired from our neighbor. These old boards were headed to the landfill. All we had to do, folks, was clean them up, remove some old screws, cut them to size, and attach to the raised beds. The next job was to attach the 6mm plastic to the walls and roof of our greenhouse. The brand of 6mm plastic we chose for our greenhouse was by Weatherall. And it was Amazon's choice as covering or sheeting for greenhouses. The sheeting was attached using staples along with wooden strips and screws on the roof. Next, we reused or repurposed an old aluminum door and installed this door in the front entrance to our greenhouse. And now, with the door finally attached and the greenhouse construction pretty much finished, it is time to go inside the greenhouse. And in here, we need to add soil and a growing mixture to these raised beds inside our greenhouse. And this is why Faith, Logan, and Ethan are so important to our greenhouse story. What they are helping me with, folks, will be considered gold to many homesteaders and farmers. What you are looking at is 4-year-old chicken manure. And it will be added to the soil inside our greenhouse as well as to the soil inside our raised bed vegetable garden. And for all of that, you will have to come back to part 4, where we discuss our very secret soil and growing mixture. So please return for part 4 of our step-by-step 5-part raised bed vegetable garden and greenhouse how-to video series. We want to thank you for returning to the old church 5-acre homestead and for watching part 3 of our greenhouse construction story. Please like our videos, and of course, please hit the notification bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Garry, Betty, the old church 5-acre homestead.